Hi, everyone. This is the Volta TST meeting for May 12th, 2020. We have a few items to discuss. This is the first time we've met in a couple weeks since the community meeting back in April. I think the first thing on the agenda is discussing the community reading and sort of the results of that. And then I think that also spans into the new SIBA and Volta TST and governance. Sarav, were you going to discuss the TST changes? Or do we have someone from one of the other partners doing that? Can anyone hear me?
Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Sorry, the problem was me. Yeah, we can talk about the TST governance. Wasn't there something else before that though?
There was some discussion of the community meeting. I think other than to say we had a lot of participation, and I think we made some good progress on figuring out where we need to go and where operator partners are taking the project. But I don't think we had more details other than that.
Yeah, there was about what 120 participants on day one, about 60 or so in day two, and I think they were both 4-hour sessions, and most people actually stayed through the majority of the meeting. Even at the end of the meetings, I think we had probably 80 or so in day one, 50 or so in day two. So it was a good couple of days. Lots of good talks, and Ayn has been sharing the presentations and the video online. I believe I've shared that also on the SIBA Volta mailing list. So if you missed the community meeting, at least day one of it, do take a look. Some good material there. So we've also been working through this TST and governance changes since the end of the SIBA surge. As you know, we've done the SIBA surge for 6 months, starting in October, ending in March, with the release of Volta 2.3 and NONOS 2.2.2. And we presented that on day one of the community meeting. But our work is not done. We certainly have some leftover items from what we had targeted in the surge. We also have some new things that have come in that are requirements from the operators to go into production later this year. So for the rest of the year, we have been trying to figure out how we are going to manage the work, the community. How would we guide this? We adopted a set of procedures during the surge that made sense during the surge, but now for the rest of the year, we'll adopt a slightly different set of procedures. And one of them is that we are going to have a new SIBA Volta technical steering team for the rest of 2021 to set the technical direction, make all the technical decisions around Volta, and drive a process to prioritize and meet Deutsche Telekom and Turk Telekom's deliverables. And the brigade procedure that we had as before will continue. And there's a couple of brigades that, for all practical purposes, have finished their work. And we have done that before. Even last year, before the surge, we had a brigade that used to work on tech profiles and bandwidth profiles. And that after that work was done, we disbanded the brigade and we will, then beyond that, the brigade only meets on demand if an issue arises. So similar things have happened. The stabilization brigade also did amazing work during the surge, and Volta is stable. There are a few other remaining tasks, but that work is, as far as the brigade goes, they will meet on demand if necessary, but the majority of the work, has been done. Similarly, the ONOS FCAPS brigade has also completed its work. So 2 brigades are basically done. And there's also a number of other brigades that are coming to conclusion and will come to conclusion by the time 2.4, Volta 2.4 rolls out at the end of June. So multicast and multi-TCON brigade, there's very few stories left. That one is nearing completion. The BAL brigade, there's the last job of migrating to BAL 2.4, which was deemed as the LTS version. So that one is also nearing completion. And similarly, the Volta FCAPS brigade. So anyway, the brigade work will continue, but we have a new TST with myself as chair, David Bainbridge and Ken from Siena. So ONF and Siena being the traditional sort of representatives in the TST. But then we also have Radisys. Amit Ghosh from Radisys is part of the TST, been associated with Volta for a long time. And we have Mahir from Netsia, Turk Telecom. And Mahir too has been working with us for a long time. So this particular document is linked in the TST meeting agenda. I won't go through every single detail over here, but when you do get a chance, please take a look. This TST will exist for the rest of the year. We will very likely have elections next year. Our former TST members that have completed their terms are Chip, formerly from Atran, now with Tibet. Chip has completed his 2-year term. So has Sean Missett from Radisys, and we thank them a lot for their contributions. And also Matt Jeanneret from AT&T. So these are our former TST members who have been replaced with David, Amit, and Mahir for a 1-year term starting in April of this year. Okay, any questions for regarding TST and governance before we move on? Okay, thank you very much. Zach, maybe I can control this screen.
I'll stop sharing.
Thank you. So the next bit is to talk about Volta 2.4 and what we have planned for Volta 2.4. All right. So let me see. I had reflected on this during the community meeting, day 1, when we talked about roadmap. We had a set of items that we called MVP 1.0, which is what the surge was targeting. There are a set of tasks that we did not get completion on. for during the surge. So this is the primary concern for Volta 2.4, which is targeted about a couple of months from now, end of June, for code freeze. There were 2 other tasks that were also part of MVP 1.0, at least as it was initially listed. But this one has been, these 2 tasks have been pushed out for the second half of 2020. That doesn't mean that work cannot start in parallel for these 2 tasks. It's just that it's not targeted for being released as part of Volta 2.4. So anyway, these are a set of things that I had noted down around a month ago when we were releasing Volta 2.3. And these percentages that you see over here were true at that point of time, which was 1 month ago. And since then, you know, so you can see that we did a code freeze for Volta 2.3 around late March. So since late March, if you look over here, you know, it says Volta 2.4. We're going to release it end of June. But there's around 261 issues. I expect this to grow. But already 161 issues have been completed. So clearly these percentages are not reflective of the current state. They're just reflective of the time when we cut the, or at least we did the code freeze for Volta 2.3. And so that meant no new features coming into 2.3. And so these percentages are reflective of that point in time. Okay, since then, actually, the Redfish device management work that we had at least targeted. So, you know, the development had been done by EdgeCore, and we had some test work to do, and that has been completed and is now part of our test framework and tests, nightly tests. Similarly, the work with clustered ONOS, OFH and Go, the development had already been completed about a month ago, but now it's part of our automated testing. It's not 100% done. There are more tests to be written, but that work, you will find that in on the Jira for Volta 2.4. Okay. I believe there are some maintenance tasks related to it, but and some test automation tasks related to ONOS clustering. Okay, so similarly, bandwidth profile and tech profile data plane validation is something that is ongoing. Again, you will find that in the test automation brigade work. So you can see there's a story related to bandwidth profiles, another related to technology profile validation, and that work is ongoing thanks to Infosys contributions and ONF work done by Andy. Okay. Again, the FTTH workflow, in fact, has been completed both in development as well as in testing, thanks to contributions from Infosys. Again, this is mainly Hardik and work done by Andrea from ONF. So big thanks that that work has actually been done right now. And there may be small deltas left, but it's largely done. The work with the GPON OLT is also in progress. It's not completed, but there are certain issues with the ONUs, the CIRCOM ONUs that are being used with the GPON OLT that are showing certain challenges with the 1T8GEM tech profile. So that work is ongoing, but thanks to Deutsche Telekom and especially Andrea, we are well on the path to achieving GPON OLT compliance with Volta 2.4. Okay, so largely this is all, you know, test related work, and you will find that in the Test Automation Brigade epic. We are also transitioning to BAL 3.4. As you know, in Volta 2.3, we had released this with BAL 3.2, but the long-term supported version of BAL is BAL 3.4, and we are in the process of upgrading our pods to BAL 3.4, and once that is successful, we will have you know, the community pods in Berlin, at Infosys in Bangalore, also have them upgrade to BAL 3.4, and you will find in the BAL Brigade epic for BAL migration, you will find the stories associated with BAL 3.4 and a few other associated bugs, right? So that's that. Oops, that's not what I wanted to do. Okay. So I've talked about that. One big thing that we missed out in Volta 2.3 is the completion of the multi-tcont and multicast work in terms of development and in terms of automated testing. So again, you will see that in the Test Automation Brigade, there is some initial work for the Turk Telecom workflow that is scheduled to be done in the Volta 2.4 timeframe. There's going to be many more tests associated with the Turk Telecom workflow. This is merely the first one that we need to get done. So this is work that is ongoing between the Netsia team and Girish at ONF. So that is ongoing. There are also some development tasks that remain. So you can see that in the multicast and multi-tcont brigade work. There are a few development items that remain for the multicast story and multi-tcont story. Okay, so that's also work that is ongoing. Another big thing is scale testing. That is, we had a target of 2 OLTs with 500 ONUs each. We got most of the work done in terms of activation, ONU activation. The big thing that remains right now is actually programming flows into the data plane. And so for full end-to-end scale testing, that work is ongoing. You'll find that under the scale and performance tasks epic for Volta 2.4. And if you look at some of the high priority tasks, it's got to do with monitoring etcd, Kafka usage, and also, you know, some profiling work that we need to do to understand what is the major CPU consumption that is going on when ONOS is trying to program flows, and you know, how is Volta reacting to flow programming at scale. So that is work that is going on in the scalability, BBCMN scalability brigade that Matteo is handling. So big thanks to Matteo and the brigade for working through these issues for scale. Okay, and then there is some remaining stabilization features and failure scenarios that we did not get to in Volta 2.3 that involves, say, enabling or disabling and re-enabling OLTs, some soft reboot work, some multi-OLT based test work. So all of that is something that we will, go through. You will find that in probably the test automation brigade, but you will also find that the description of that in this document, which talks about how to deal with various failures and failure scenarios. So we have the code in place, we have the design sort of written up in this area, in this document, and we need to incorporate that into our test framework. So those are the remaining stabilization and failure scenario cases. Finally, in-band managing OLTs in-band through the NNI ports is something that is of interest, and you will find there is a separate epic called in-band support in Voltha that doesn't have a lot of stories right now, actually, but because the work is largely done, we just need to ensure that it works with BAL 3.4, which is what the BAL Brigade is migrating to, and we need to incorporate that into our test framework. So again, that is things that you will find in the test automation brigade epic, right? And finally, there is Mac learning that is necessary for the Turk Telecom workflow, and in the future for the Deutsche Telekom FTTB workflow. So there is a Mac Learning app that you will find under the epic called ONOS App Improvements. There is a Mac Learning app from Turk Telecom that is being contributed, and of course will need to be incorporated into our test framework. So these are the set of tasks that I wanted to go through and give people an idea about where to find that in Jira. And these are a set of things that have been targeted for this end of June release, which is Voltha 2.4. Now, at the same time, there are newer features, right, that have come in for the for what we call MVP 2.0, beyond what had been identified in MVP 1.0. And in this set of tasks, there are certain priorities. So the ones marked with this priority 1 basically have, that's what I've done by marking them over here. And you'll see that the work is going on in a few of these that are shown in green. There is work going on. So for example, there's a lot of very good work happening in terms of logging that you will find in this logging evolution epic under Voltha 2.4. So lots of good contributions coming in from Infosys regarding logging. So you will find a bunch of stories related to that that are taking care of this. And there are also certain stories related to device IDs that are probably reflected in a set of stories that you can find on Jira as well. There's also a lot of good work happening for the Golang version of OpenONU adapter and the Open OMCI stack that is happening with contributions from Adtran. So you will find that reflected in Jira under this Golang OpenONU adapter in Golang. So there are a few stories here. We don't expect this to happen for Voltha 2.4. You will find even more stories in what we call the future version. So there's a lot of good work happening on that front from Adtran, and in a meeting that is hosted by Andrea. So so that's another thing that I wanted to point out. And then there are a few other items for which work has not started. You will hear about some of this later today under device management. Some of us heard it for software upgrades, specifically OLT software upgrades. So the TST does need to figure out how we get the work started on some of these issues, including, multiple NNIs and lags and so on. There is also ADTRAN, OLT, and ADTRAN-based device management that is a desired area of work. It's unclear if that work is going to be done or tracked in Jira, but that's also something that we need to figure out. So this is hopefully a good enough introduction with some detail about the plans for Volta 2.4, which largely reflect everything that's on this particular slide, and a few things that have sort of started in parallel. That's not to say they'll come into Volta 2.4, but certainly work has started in parallel. So as you can see, Volta 2.4 has been detailed as MVP 1.0 has completion, and the related epics for that. Okay, any questions before we move on to the next topic?
Just a quick question on, there was some discussion and work around, re-architecting Volta and the OLT adapter as basically focused on a single OLT device. Is that part of the scalability work, or is that?
Yeah, so that's right. So if you see we first have to meet this goal, right? Two OLTs with 500 ONUs each, right? And right now we are targeting that with a single Volta stack, right? And which by what that means is that there is a single core and a single OLT adapter. And there's multiple ONU adapters. And so once we are able to meet this goal, then we are going to go through the process of, as you can see, the figuring out, doing this server sizing, etcd, Kafka sizing, figuring out how much CPU memory usage we need. And then we will also explore multiple Volta stacks. So will that get done in the 2.4 timeframe? I'm not sure, but depends on how long it takes us to get to meeting this goal. But certainly it's, as you can see, it's identified as priority 1 from the operators.
Thanks.
Did that answer your question? Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, great, thanks. Any other questions?
Yeah, so Saurabh, where do you see works that, for example, that we started before when we push it for the future, things like device states, changes, all those
Right.
a priority in them?
Yeah, so that's really up to the TST to decide if, so this refactor Volta device states, right? As you can see, there's, those stories are still left into the future right now.
Mm-hmm.
And it's up to the TST to decide, do we want to bring these in to Volta 2.4? Are they, there's similarly a lot of other, so I mean, even if you look under Volta 2.4 right now, there is some cleanup tasks, refactoring tasks that Kent is going through with you right now, which is fine, right? So it's really our call. If we have the, in terms of the TST, we can determine what the priority of getting this in. We can see if we have the resources to get this in, and then we can bring this in. We can decide to bring this in. So that's something that we can, the TST, it's completely up to the TST, and the TST can debate either on our Slack channel or in other meetings.
Okay, makes sense. Thanks.
Any other question? Okay, then back to you, Zach. Zach, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. I reshared the screen. I put a link into the Jira backlog. Saurav, are you going to have links to those presentation slides? Or could you add
They
that?
are the same presentation slides that I used back in the community meeting.
Okay, and so those are linked from the presentation day one.
Day one, yeah, that's right. Thank you.
Okay. We had some discussion items. The first was a DT device management proposal. Andrea, did you bring this up or someone else? Who can speak to this?
I added it to the agenda, but I believe it's best if Manuel Paul from Deutsche Telekom speaks about it.
Okay, Manuel, would you like to present?
As you like. If you would like to bring it up, that is fine too. But otherwise, I can share my screen.
I will let you drive, so I'll make you co-host and stop sharing my screen.
Okay, all right, then I hope that you can see mine now. Let me go to full screen mode.
We can see
just
it.
Check up, yeah, okay, great. Well, yeah, so don't want to take long time, but just a big thanks to everybody who helped me on this presentation. So it's, I think, a presentation that has been reviewed and prepared and discussed with some community members and with some help of some key people, including Andrea, Amit, Ghosh, and others. So what we are proposing is an enhancement of the reference implementation for multi-vendor support, focusing on the device management. So everything I'm going to talk about is focused on device management and not on the adapter, OLT, Voltha core stack. But what we are looking for is a common device management API. And in order to achieve that, we have looked into the architectural enhancements that we would need. So as of today, there's the Redfish device management, which is right now rather a monitoring that is available by the current state in the exemplar. And we have looked for getting that extended to support all of the operations needed, at least for the MVP and then beyond. So we're talking about the hardware device management here, not any other aspects that would all go and continue to go through Voltha, the OLT adapter, and the core, as said. We are just looking for those aspects and operations that are needed to go through this device management to the hardware device. So what we actually propose is to move to a more generic API that allows an enhanced integration of different implementations, different OLT models, and that includes also those that are available and existing out there on the market and support netconf and Yang-based device management. So the new interface or a new schema that we propose to be used would generalize and make the device management available to the upstream components, the operators NEM components more generically, and looking into available standards references, we propose to build on a model that is derived from RFC 8348. If you're looking for RFC, you won't find it. I think there's a typo on the slide, but at least it's consistent. So the interface and model that I'm talking about is related to the northbound interface from the device management components or boxes over here. And includes the export via Kafka, so that existing interfaces can be continued to be supported via Prometheus as is, but the operator NEM components get a generic and common interface to drive device management. All right, so why is it RC 8348 based? What we are proposing, it has been coming up as a very simple model, and it is pretty close to what is known, well understood, and out there supported in the market, so that there is a big opportunity to make it pretty simple and straightforward to include a number of OLT models out there on the market. So looking at the overall SIBA context, obviously we know that there are other devices that would benefit from a common device management. So looking at the downside, beyond OLTs, there might be servers and switches, first of all, where a use of a more native Redfish interface could be advantages. On the other hand, right now we are not seeing that there's any preclusion of using such interfaces, and moreover, right now, at a certain point in time of the project, there's a big focus on getting OLT device management right, and still having a generic API that is extensible for the future. So in conclusion, proposal is to introduce a generic interface for hardware device management, extending the multi-vendor support for SIBA Voltha's management plane. We propose an RFC 8348 based model, which is fully equipped to support device management. And we believe it's a choice, the best choice. As said, it's simple, well understood. It is also used as a basis in standard specifications like the Broadband Forum's TR383, where existing vendors have good understanding and good familiarity with it. So at this point, we believe it's easier to adopt, and it gives, as said, the opportunity to make it attractive, make this API, this generic interface attractive and easy to be consumed for the inclusion of additional models out there on the market into our stack and the device management solution. So as said before, this is focusing on the device management API northbound most of all. There's no intent to change the reference stack or protocols southbound to the OLT. And so looking forward to the support of the community to moving to such a model, which is key for Deutsche Telekom and also short-term in terms of decision making for us to move forward with our MVP implementation.
Okay, thank you, Manuel. We have discussed this in smaller fora, if you wish, before. So I want to ask if there's anybody on the call who has any questions for Manuel. Okay, anybody on the SIBA Voltha TST that has any questions for Manuel?
Not necessarily a question for Manuel. What's going to be the process around examining this proposal and making a decision to how to go forward?
And that is up to us, and that is up to the TST to make the decision. So, but I would like to bring this to a conclusion this week. So, I'm hoping that the TST can get together, either on a call or on the Slack channel. But either way, make a call so the community can move forward this week. Is that fair?
Yep, thank you.
Okay, great. So please do expect to hear from the TST this week on this particular proposal.
A quick question.
Yes,
Manuel.
go ahead, Maher.
Yeah, as I remember from the last meeting, somebody said that there aren't set methods in redfish schema, but this RFC 8347 has the set ability. So is there something like that or not?
No, I think there's a confusion there. There is set capabilities. So Redfish schema is based on Redfish sort of REST APIs, and so you can post or patch, make REST API calls that do set things. It's the implementation that we currently have for MVP 1.0 that does not include the set. It only includes get, subscribe, and poll based APIs. So the current implementation that you have does not have the set, but the protocol itself and the schema includes the ability to set. At least that is my understanding. If my understanding is incorrect, somebody can point that out. Did that help, Maher? Did that
Yeah,
clear
okay.
up?
Thank
Okay.
you. Great.
Any other questions? Okay then. So thank you, Manuel, and the TST will make a call this week.
Okay, thanks very much.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Manuel. The next item we had was performance metric configuration from the FCAPS brigade. I think this was Scott, I believe.
Yeah. Myself and Rohan. I can start off. I've got a little bit of things to show, and then I can hand off to Rohan if there's any questions.
Okay,
So
I've made you a co-host, and I'll
yeah,
stop sharing.
yeah. Let me share screen and find. Okay, is everyone seeing a window that says implement PM config commands in Voltcuddle? I'll
Yes, we do.
assume
Yes, we can see it.
silence means it's yes. Okay, so this is the task that I currently have handed off to Rohan. Basically, what we have in Volta is we have this PM config structure exposed by the core that allows metrics to be configured. This was present in the old legacy Volta CLI back in Volta 1.x, but was never ported over to Voltcuddle. So Rohan is working on porting that to Voltcuddle. But in the course of going through what we need to expose this to the client, some questions came up about the usefulness of this feature in general and the implementation of this in general within the core to make sure that these metrics are configured in kind of a portable way across implementations. We do have some notes. This document here is linked to the issue. The top part is some of the CLI stuff that Rohan is working on. Down here, I typed in some notes on how the PM configs currently work in the core and in the OpenONU adapter, just to give people some ideas of what's there. The metric schema that we have is very Prometheus-like. Individual metrics can be designated as counters or gauges. They have names. You can enable or disable them, and they have frequencies. So people familiar with Prometheus may find the concept of counters and gauges familiar. They're also grouped, and the grouping is implementation specific and is basically has to do with how things are collected. So for an example, we have Ethernet bridge history. I kind of expanded the grouping out here. And for a particular Ethernet bridge port, it has all of the packet stats, you know, how many packets are broadcast, how many are dropped, for how many 64 octet packets are seen, how many 65 to 127. All of that stuff comprises a group, and you control the frequency of this group altogether. You don't, for example, turn on or off the 65 to 127 octet measurement. These are all collected together from OMCI. You have to turn on or off the whole thing together. It makes no sense to try to turn knobs on individual parts of this metric. So that would be the motivation for the grouping feature. There is also support for non-grouped metrics, though I have no idea if those currently exist. You know, whether you would just encounter a counter in the code that isn't part of a group. My thoughts after viewing the code is that that's probably rare that would happen, if at all. Anyhow, I think the core issue that came up is basically whether this PM configuration schema we have here is useful, whether it's correct, and whether this is even the responsibility of Voltha to sort of mediate this access to these PM configuration. Some of these questions were posed by David. So David, I will kind of, I will invite you to pose your questions.
It was, I think you actually covered it quite well, so thank you for that. I mean, the real question was, you know, what is this feature for and who's using it? And if no one was using it because, well, it hadn't been implemented for quite a while, is it something that still needs to be implemented and included is really the main question.
So these are things that are already collected by Voltha today. It's just not exposed via, or the controller control of these, like turning things on or off, is not exposed via Volt Kettle. Am I right? I mean, PM collection, no question, right? We do need to collect these things.
Yeah,
they're part of the FCAP
correct.
story. So these things are already been collected. They're just not controlled via the northbound API that we have to.
I thought it wasn't collected by everybody. I thought one of the adapters wasn't collecting it because it wasn't ported over when the adapter went from Python to Go.
So that is the OpenOLT adapter. Does not, Rohan looked into this and does not export these PM configs structures. I think from what I saw, I think the OpenOLT adapter is exporting metrics. So this morning I did not actually look at the OpenOLT adapter implementation to see whether it's just the PM configuration part that's missing there or what exactly is going on there. Rohan might have a better idea of what's happening in the OpenOLT adapter.
Yeah, Scott. So I actually have analyzed that OpenOLT adapter code. So currently the PM configs are getting initialized and they are getting published also in Kafka. But the real problem is that update API, which needs to be implemented in OpenOLT adapter. So if we kind of want to enable or disable a particular metric through Voltha, that won't be possible. So right now that update API is not implemented in OpenOLT adapters. Otherwise, the initializing of PM configs and publishing that to Kafka is there.
So the list groups or list metrics RPCs are present in OpenOLT?
Yeah, they are present. They are not present as group metrics. They are present as individual metrics.
Okay, good. So that does answer this question here. So there are non-grouped metrics in the OpenOLT adapter. So it seems like maybe the OpenOLT adapter does need a going through to look at how its stuff is grouped and to expose that update API. The OpenONU adapter, at least the Python one, does have all of this support in it, and seems to be where a lot of our metrics come from.
And do we have issues where there is a metric both in a group as well as individual, or all metrics in a group only in a group?
So Rohan, was it the case that all of the metrics in OpenONU adapter are grouped?
Yeah, I checked the code for it today. I was checking it today. So all the metrics which I found were either in groups form only. There was no individual metrics in OpenONU.
Yeah, so David, that should kind of answer your question. At least in OpenONU, all of these are grouped,
Okay.
mainly because they're coming out of OMCI messages. And an OMCI message, you know, it has a bunch of different counters in it typically.
The last question I have around this, based on the conversation and Manuel's presentation, is this something also would be considered, I guess, device management, and does it need to be put in there, or at least be considered in that context? At least
So
the
not every,
configuration of it.
it's no. So see, device management happens on a separate channel from the Volta stack, and for things that you need to pull from the ONUs, you know, the 500 or 1,000 ONUs, or those happen through OMCI, and that OMCI is happening through the Volta stack. So as much as possible, we want to keep the Volta stack separate from the device management stack. The device management stack is going to concern itself with the physical OLT, but things that are not particularly PON related. They, you know, the fans, the LEDs,
Yep.
maybe software upgrade, and so on. These are all PON related statistics that you have no choice, at least for the ONUs, you have no choice but to go through the Volta stack. So therefore, it belongs in its configuration. It's pulling the data, publishing onto Kafka. All of that belongs on the Volta side of things.
Okay.
I guess just a comment. I guess these statistics, certainly for the Ethernet interfaces, kind of they're a little dated, right? I mean, typically the RFC 7223 is kind of the base set of statistics that everything else is based on. I mean, so is that something we could support?
I'm not sure I followed the question.
So for instance, like this is based on very old standards, right? I mean, the system, it looks a little different, right? I mean, for instance, like the packets broadcast and multicast, right? So the 7223 has, you know, they break out separately for unicast, broadcast, and multicast. There's no counting of, you know, different packet size bins. It's very streamlined view of interface statistics.
Okay, I see what you're saying. So that would require a change to the implementation if we were to, you know, upgrade to a newer version of the protocol, and that remains to be seen if that is a necessity. If this does not, you know, satisfy the needs of the operators, but I would still like to focus on the question that was brought up.
Yeah, sure. This is just
this is a separate topic.
Yeah,
right?
a side track here. Sorry.
Mm-hmm. So regarding the question that was brought up, David, do you have any other, I mean, is it clearer now that it's stuff that we need? It is also stuff that belongs on the Volta side of things, specifically because of what we need to pull from the ONUs that happen by OMCI. And so all that is missing is the sort of the northbound control interface for turning things on and off, or grouping them, if you wish. So
some of that is, and some of the work that was done to investigate, you know, where the OpenOLT adapter makes sense. I think that I think it would make sense to understand how we're going to address some of the device management stuff, and so that there's similarities. I'm not saying it's the same stack or the same path, but there's similarities between how we manage statistics coming from kind of the pond side, as well as how we manage statistics and data coming from the device side, so that they're just, the system seems more similar.
Just as a quick point, this is Scott. I'm going to have to drop in 1 minute to host the next meeting.
Yeah, we're at the top
Such
of
is our
the hour.
lives.
Yeah, we are at the top of the hour. There, I think, is one more item on the agenda, but we'll have to postpone that to next week, next week's call. But I would like to bring, I would like to understand how we drive this particular item to conclusion.
I think we're good.
Yeah.
I think Scott's going to manage this through his brigade, and we'll continue on that way. I think that's how this moves.
Okay. And then for the question that you posed about what the device management side is going to spit out versus what Volta is going to spit out, you would like to see some similarities, right?
Yeah, I think that just makes sense.
Okay. So
And
then that is, go ahead.
Do we still need the ability to change those metrics? Like currently, like in the core, we have those APIs to change the configs, the PM configs. Do we still want to have those? Because it looks like it has never been used. Is there a need to have them? Or this is more a read-only thing?
I thought the conclusion was we do need them, although we don't have a user right now.
Oh, okay.
Is that fair, Saurav?
Yeah, it is. But, you know, when the TST gets together to try and discuss the device management side, we can continue the discussion on the PMs also.
Okay.
Okay. Zach, over to you.
Okay, we're at the top of the hour, and I need to drop for that same meeting Scott needs to. So we'll refer the last item to next week. Thank you all for joining. Goodbye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.